First of all, thanks so much everyone for joining us for March Office Hours. Thrilled to have you here. I know personally as a champ that Office Hours are one of my favorite parts of the program, so really excited to connect with you all and learn some tips and tricks from our fabulous group of panelists here. Before we kick off, a couple of housekeeping things around user group rules and things like that. Technically, Champ Office Hours are part of our Marketo user group program. And so in order for those to stay safe and focus on our members and create a collaborative problem-solving environment, a few things that we ask the community to adhere to. One is no self-promotion or pitching of any kind. I'm sure we all get enough pitching in our day jobs and can save the hour for that. Don't contact anyone outside of the user group without their consent. And then if MUG members share their use cases or questions in your user group, please don't share that information without their consent. Also, obligatory notice for everyone on the line that this call is being recorded. We post these on our YouTube channel as a great place for people to learn and get some additional info. If you don't wish to participate in a live recording, we're sorry to see you go, but please feel free to join us and consume the recording at a later time. This will be linked and shared on our YouTube channel. And finally, you're all here, so hopefully you're all a part of our user group channel in Bevy, but if you aren't, please go ahead and sign up for that so that you can be notified for any of the upcoming Champ Office Hours, as well as any of our amazing other user groups that are put on by user groups throughout the country. Cool. Couple of upcoming opportunities. If you haven't already heard, Summit is this month. Summit is March 26th through 28th, I guess 25th through 28th, excuse me, technically in Vegas. I went last year and it was a really fun time and I learned so much. And so if you're on the fence and still have some opportunity to attend, I highly, highly personally recommend that you check out Summit. There's some really, really awesome content coming out of that session. As a quick plug for a couple of things at Summit, we got a few questions in at the last minute around career growth, steps to getting certified, steps to being a champ, things of that nature. And I know there's a couple of awesome Summit sessions focused on that. One, Jess Cow, who's a many year former Marketo champ, is doing a Summit session all about translating marketing ops to C-suite speak. And I can speak for myself that that session's helped me immensely in my career the couple of times I've seen it. There are tons of awesome sessions from other champs around there and tons of opportunities to engage with champs and other people in the Marketo community at the community pavilion and things like that. If you're not able to attend in person, never fear. A lot of the sessions, almost all of the sessions, if I'm understanding correctly, are being recorded and can be consumed online at a later date. All right, so if you are going to Summit, join all of our fellow user group folks for an in-person meetup in the community pavilion on Tuesday. I don't know what day of the month that is, from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. We'd love to have you there, and I know we've got some folks on the call who are attending Summit and would love to meet you and or heckle you in person if you get the chance to connect with Rico. Finally, we've got an awesome calendar of upcoming Marketo user group meetings. So next week, we've got a deep dive on using formulas. Then in the following week, we've got a Rally Durham in person if you live in North Carolina mug, and then a number of in-person and virtual mugs throughout April and March. You can RSVP using our QR code, and don't worry, this deck will also be shared and included in the recording. All right, I'm talking a lot. I said 2 minutes of housekeeping and we're at 4, so I'll be quick here. Finally, I'm going to introduce our panel. I'm Jessica. I'm the moderator for today, so I'll be kind of running the ceremonies here and passing questions over to our fantastic set of panelists. Let's go ahead and have the panelists introduce themselves. Alysha, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, folks. My name is Alysha. I'm a consulting services manager at Atumos. I've been in Marketo for about 5 years now, focusing mostly on campaign ops, demand centers, and process.
Chiara, you want to take it away?
Absolutely. I'm Chiara. I am a senior marketing operations manager at Appfolio. I've been in Marketo since 2015, I believe, certified in 2016, and I've been a champ since 2020. Yeah.
Charlie?
Hi, folks. I'm Charlie Oakham from Kainos, a business based out of Northern Ireland. I'm based in Wales, in the United Kingdom, if you guys know where that is. I'm the digital strategy director at Kainos, and I look after all of marketing technology and operations. And I will also be at Summit this year. It's my first time, like Zoe, so check me out.
I'm impressed that you already have the swag ahead of the event.
It's not quite the size though, it's quite good. I kind of blend into the background as well.
And last but not least, Maria.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Cruz. I'm a senior director of marketing orchestration for MRM, and I have been using Marketo for now over a decade. I always say that, and I always age myself, but yes, just the ins and outs of it from starting from scratch and now being able to help out several different companies with their Marketo strategies.
Perfect. Going to go ahead and jump into some of our questions. I don't think it would be a technology event in 2024 if there weren't a handful of questions about AI. So we're going to go ahead and get us kicked off with some of those. So other than AI, though, what technology do you think will be the next technology that every stack needs to have in their stack? Charlie, I think I'm going to pass this one over to you.
Yeah, I'll take that one. It's really hard actually to get away from sort of AI and machine learning. I think if anyone going to Vegas this year, that will be the core I guess, subject matter. It's even the subject matter of my talk at Summit, so I can't get away from it. But like, if you follow the sort of Scott Brinker or Collis Doherty from LXA, they're all talking about consolidation. So my God, every sort of platform is looking to expand. I mean, hopefully we're going to hear a little bit more about Marketo's roadmap at Summit this year to sort of see, what exciting things they're going to bring on board. There are also going to be lots of disruptors out there, particularly when it comes to sort of data and processing. CDP was a big thing last year. I think we're going to see a little bit more of that this year, but you just can't get away from AI and machine learning. And that's going to be sort of big, and I think in this sort of space. So I'm really sorry. It's hard to get away from that one. Not sure. Would anyone else agree? Jess, there's actually another one about AI integration. I could probably move into that one as well. Perfect.
Take it away.
So there was a question sort of put to us about AI integration, and particularly, what Adobe is using for Adobe Marketo Engage. How are we using it? And then also, what do we sort of see? Actually, the question sort of goes into Minority Report with Tom Cruise. So first of all, a show of hands in the chat. Has anyone seen Minority Report with Tom Cruise? Sometimes I get mistaken for him about the same height. Well, I've seen Minority Report, so I'll just sort of put my hand up there now. So Adobe Sensei. So Adobe Sensei, if you guys are using sort of the Adobe Cloud, you may already sort of see it used right across the board when it comes to, interpreting data, machine learning around sort of trends. It'd be great to sort of see more of that. But here at Kainos, we actually use Microsoft AI. We're a Microsoft sort of stack, and we use it with Marketo actually for doing a lot of sort of data processing in marketing ops. It's quite good to use AI machine learning for normalizing content, for taking sort of field responses and categorizing those, particularly when it comes to sort of segmentation. We do a lot of that, which is sort of great because it takes things like job titles and we could drop those into job functions. But then we also started to branch out using generative AI as well for creating things like responses in chat. So we can create individual personalized responses for chat, dynamic chat, and then also for emails, which we sort of drop into using either velocity scripting or dynamic content. Now there are others like out there. There's some great blogs and great bits of content in the community out there with people connecting into OpenAI, ChatGPT, using self-service flow steps in order to sort of do that, or even using sort of plugins with Zapier to sort of connect sort of different AIs to achieve exactly those kind of things.
Charlie, you mentioned your summit sesh is focused on AI. Can you tell us like a tiny bit more about it?
Oh, it's really good. I'm not a technical developer, right? So this is kind of where I differentiate between a lot of those awesome sort of Python developers within the sort of the Champions group. But we at Kainos, or I am in particular, used Power Automate. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with Power Automate, but it's basically a low-code Zapier style. If you guys are familiar with Zapier, I know that's a little bit more well-known. Drag and drop function where you can connect applications like Marketo with other applications, like in our case, Microsoft AI. So in my talk, I'm going to be talking about how we can transform data. Rico, it's Power Automate. So it's Microsoft Power Automate and it's Microsoft AI. And I'm going to be talking about how you can transform data in Marketo for marketing operations. So that's creating summaries out of last interesting moments, which is great because sales sometimes can't understand all of those last interesting moments. It's great to sort of give them sales summaries. And then also normalizing data as well, because I know some of my team on here, so I've got to behave. We use Marketo with Dynamics, and Dynamics is really pernickety when it comes to sort of syncing leads. So yeah, I know, Aisha, is where every single field has to be a pick list value, right? So we use Power Automate with Microsoft AI to normalize and categorize a lot of our data. So it's on the 28th in the afternoon, so please come along. Bring tomatoes. If it's terrible, you can throw them at me. If not, I'll bring in my own sort of sweets.
So cool. It sounds like a fascinating talk. Moving along from AI, we got a couple of questions kind of in like the data and data management realm that I thought would be a nice segue. There's definitely some cool use cases with AI and data. But beyond that, what are some strategies the teams has used for data retention and removing duplicate records? Charlie, I think natural segue for you to chime in on this one as well.
Yeah, sure. Look, guys, I promise I won't take the full hour. I really do. It's actually great timing because we actually are at the moment just reviewing our data retention strategy. And I work with a sales ops function, and several sales ops functions actually. So we're trying to sort of align marketing with sales on the retention of data in CRM as well as sort of in Marketo marketing. Now, look, when it comes to data retention, it's very, there are so many wide use cases. It's very sort of specific to you, your industry, and the company that you work for. So I'll just share some of the things that we do at Kainos, and then perhaps just talk about some strategies about how you can remove and deal with those sort of dedupes. So when it comes to the marketing data we hold, particularly the prospecting data, we tend to remove those after about 180 days if they're unengaged. We like to keep a really clean instance. We don't, if someone hasn't engaged with us in the last 180 days, chances are they're not going to remember us, right? So let's ship them out and really sort of keep our sort of instance nice and clean. But when it comes to sort of customer data, we do actually have long renewal cycles. ARR is really important to us, so we actually keep that a little bit longer. Up to 7 years, and then in between you've got lots of different types of sort of prospect and customer data. So lost customers, engaged customers, and we sort of keep them at different times. Now, when it comes to dedupes, it's a real problem from us. Dynamics loves creating duplicates in our Marketo instance, and so often, our first port of call is always to merge duplicates. Never really remove them. Oh, sorry, was there a question there? Oh, no, I carry on. To merge duplicates, never to really remove them. often, there's some great data in each of the different types of duplicates, and we always want to maintain a clean database. There are obviously ones we can dedupe on straight up matches, including sort of email, those email addresses. But then also we use a lot of sort of fuzzy matching around the company, that company location, as well as the first name, last name on those people. Again, sort of we lean a lot on sort of Power Automate with AI to try and find those sort of fuzzy matches that we can merge. I'd love to hear about anyone else's sort of tips on dedupes. Anyone has any? You do, perhaps just drop them to the chat there.
Maria, I saw you come off mute.
Yes, I was agreeing. I was seeing some of the questions too, somebody's asking, how do we merge duplicates? I think that was one of the questions, right? I don't know, Charlie, if you saw, but no, I agree with you. We also do the same thing, right? We have to have, we do more of a standardization, right? When it comes to duplications, right? On, is it a true duplicate? And it depends on the scenario, right? Because you might have that 1%, you might be that 1% that has multiple records, right? But they are purchasing different items, right? So just trying to find which one is the correct the correct contact or person in the system, right? But in the general practice, right, about 90% of Marketo, when you are trying to see it, yes, I agree, merging duplicates is best practice, right? And then Charlie, to your point, right, is being able to see which one has the most up-to-date data, right? Because sometimes you're like, okay, which of the contacts am I keeping? One of the problems that I've encountered, right, is one is through the one-to-one integration, right? That it's coming from your CRM, but then there's list imports too. So when you have list imports, right, which one is the correct contact to keep, right, in the database? So, and I see more questions arising. So I don't know if we're going to go through those, but yeah, I agree with you, Charlie.
You mentioned something, and I'm going to segue it into our next combo unless anyone wants to chime in on some of the chats we're having. First one is around smart lists. And I think let's save that one because I think that's kind of a segue. But the second one is around merging leads and contacts when solving for duplicates. Curious if anyone else has any other thoughts. I think it's easiest if you get external technology that can handle the lead conversion to contact merge in a single step. And there's a ton of great ones out there. I saw some nods. Do any of the champs who are on the panel have a specific technology that they use for this internally?
We always keep that.
Oh, sorry.
Go on, Gary.
We use Ringlead. I've also at a past company used Cloud-Dingo.
Those are the two I would recommend, or not recommend, excuse me. Those are the two I would have used also pretty heavily.
How do you guys use those? Do you are you sort of looking up those contacts and sort of then normalizing that data to then sort of merge them together?
Yeah, our database team has like kind of written a very complex set of rules and things like that directly within Ringlead. And then whenever someone enters the system, we call the webhook. And Ringlead assesses it and updates that before they go through any other sort of processing stuff.
Very similar setup on my side. Kind of on a similar note, or segueing a bit away from duplicates, this question is really close to my heart. I work in healthcare tech, and duplicates of like organizations and households, and then people who span like multiple organizations is a big problem in healthcare tech. But we saw some questions around kind of personalization for that scenario where they may be like multiple households or multiple individuals sharing the same email address. Maria, I'd love to get your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, definitely. So it depends on the scenario, right? Or what kind of industry you're in. Because if it's more of a healthcare, right? If you're going more B2B or B2C, right? That's where there's differences. Usually, right, if you have more than one household, right, and you're having multiple people within it, right, and you're trying to capture their data, you can leverage, there's different versions that you can do. You can definitely use like that we've used is using custom fields, right, to be able to capture that data. And then you can definitely use it within using dynamic content and segmentations to personalize that data. But also the ways you can also continue to get the different households, right, is by adding progressive profiling within forms, right, depending on what you're trying to capture. And then preference centers are a big one that I see, is to be able to know when, what type of data they're trying to get for those, say if it's for example, a parent, right, or a household when you're trying to do B2C, right, and you're trying to target them. Another one, though, that I've seen when it comes to B2B on more of that personalization, right, and they have the same email address. For example, excuse me. For example, if you have one company that one email address and they this is for the food industry, one email address, but they purchase it for multiple stores, right? So say they have a Domino's, for example, in different states, right? But so they have different companies. So one of the solutions that we have is we have different they have the same email address, right? But since they live in different territory, the businesses are in different territories, which are in different workspaces. We have a set of unique IDs to identify them. So it all depends on which route you're going, right? Where if you're going more on a B2C, where you can definitely use custom fields, and you have more of a household, and you want to use, they're using the same email address, right? Definitely, we leverage custom fields where we can definitely personalize with dynamic content and segmentations, as well as preference centers they can select. And then also when we go to B2B and we come to that kind of scenario where it's the same email address, but they have multiple locations, right? And they have to order. We use, other than custom objects, right? We use unique ID identifiers when it comes into more trickier situation where it's different workspaces, different partitions, right? Because it becomes a regional promotions, right? So anybody else on the team have any insights?
I love the custom fields idea. I really do. Yeah, we use a lot of custom objects. So we are constantly sort of adding those custom objects and pulling them out, and then using those for segmentation and sort of combining and things like that. So yeah.
Yes. Another trickier option. I'm not sure everybody, if everybody is familiar with velocity scripting, other than dynamic content and segmentations, right? If you are, I always say I'm good enough. I'm very dangerous with velocity scripting. I'm good enough to be dangerous. Not an expert, but good enough to be dangerous, right? But if you are into velocity scripting, that is another option also for personalization, but that gets a little bit trickier.
Has anyone used, I'm going to hard pivot, ChatGPT to help them write velocity script? I use ChatGPT a lot to help me write like Salesforce formulas and report formulas in like our BI tools, and it's really effective. And I'm wondering if that might also be this case.
That might be my next thing is using ChatGPT for velocity scripting.
It's really good at some of the really technical stuff, like reporting formulas and Salesforce formulas.
Quick follow-up question to that. Have you seen an issue with the custom fields with trying to get the same, all the family members into the email campaigns? Because out of the box, Marketo will not allow the same email to show up or be sent multiple emails, even though, like, say, mom and dad both need to be sent an email, even though they share the same email address.
I've seen this recently, Chris, on oh my God, is it on must be on the community, whereby you might have, say, mum is interested in one particular product line, and then dad comes to the website and sees another and adds to the basket. And so when you send, say, something like an abandoned basket, or you have something in your basket email, why are you sending it, and how do you send it, because you have something there. It's an interesting case. I'll have to look up, because I think there's been a bit of debate around, you know, the approach to that. So sorry,
Thank
Chris,
you.
that's not really answering
Yeah.
your question, but
Sorry. I'll get you next time.
Now, was your question more on who to select to get that targeted email? Because I know I've seen it where it's who are you trying to target, right? Or is it the scenario where Charlie mentioned where it's you need to send both of them the same but different email?
Correct. It's more like Charlie's instance, because it's,
Okay.
think of it like a family object, right? Like you were talking
Yeah.
about before. So I was
Mhm.
curious if you had a way to enable for, or to work around for that family object to have multiple sends, even though they share the same email, but you're using the, if I'm understanding correctly, you're using the custom fields to denote that this is mom and this is dad, even though they have the same email. Have you found a way to send to both, I guess?
I'm gonna have to write something up, Chris, because I think I was looking at it from the perspective of where we have, I think I was looking at it from the point of an account that has perhaps downloaded one guide but not had another, and it was a case of, am I speaking to, say, the CIO or the CFO? And it's like, how would I sort of personalize that? And I was then I think coming at it from the perspective of again, custom objects, and being able to sort of identify that person, see what they have or have not had, and then use sort of tokens to try and sort of pull that through in Velocity scripting. So I'll dig that article out and see if I can write a follow-up for the community.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I love it. There's some really cool and complex use cases that come out of these. Speaking of email, wanted to kind of segue into more of the creative aspect of email and talk a little bit about the pros and cons of one of those plug and play services like a Knack or some of their equivalents versus what is commonly referred to as like a primary or a master template in your Marketo instance that has 30 plus modules that you can configure kind of at your discretion. Alysha, knowing your background in campaign ops, I feel like this would be an awesome one for you to jump in on.
I love Knack and I love my Marketo master templates, and I think they both have great distinct use cases. If you are a smaller team, if you have only one email builder, the master Marketo template is fantastic for you, right? You're one person in there, you're one person managing the process. Knack at that point is just an extra integration. It's an extra cost. It's one more tool for you to have to deal with, right? You're going to get tons of value, especially if you just spend that extra cost in getting a super great template developed from an agency that knows what they're doing. Then great, you're all set. However, if you have a larger team, if you have a decentralized marketing team, if you have multiple people that need to be building emails in there and you don't necessarily want them in Marketo, or they don't have the technical knowledge to be in Marketo, that is when Knack, or I think Stencil's another example, is a fantastic option, right? The integration is really seamless. It is much more like regular marketing people friendly to build in. Like marketing ops people are very comfortable, I think, with some of the slightly more technical interface of a Marketo master template, whereas Knack is a lot more like WYSIWYG and it just like looks better. So it's very easy for people to get very quickly up to speed in there, comfortable using it. And the review process is often a lot easier because you can just send them the link to the Knack preview. And then from there, it just syncs into Marketo. And what's also nice is that once that sync is established, you can just update the asset in Knack, hit the sync button, and it pings it right back to the same asset that's located in Marketo. Now, the one downside of using Knack is that for every email that is synced over, it generates a net new template in Design Studio. And if you're doing any kind of volume, this gets very messy very fast. So that is one thing that you will have to keep a close eye on and just be really on top of managing to make sure that your design studio is not just a flood of all of these one-off email templates. The other thing to be, this isn't a downside, just like a thing to be careful of, is this also when you're building like global autoresponders, making sure that you're managing those a little bit more carefully. Because it's not just like a one-to-one, it's like one email asset is being used in a bunch of different programs. So making sure that the NAC to Marketo sync stays really solid as you're doing that, as you're using the global autoresponder. So both are great tools, different use cases. And I think it just depends where your company's at.
One tiny note, if you're going the route of a Marketo master template, there's tons of companies out there that can support you.
Yes.
Do some due diligence because you get what you pay for.
Yes, 100%. Like, it feels like you can cheap out on a Marketo email template, and you will almost always pay for that decision badly and in spades. You want people who have done it before, and if when you are vetting vendors, make sure that they can show you examples and that they can like walk you through the modules, that they have the litmus tests or the email on asset tests, that they are not just people who like build email templates and like, oh yeah, we could do it in Marketo too. They are vastly different skills. So you want an agency that is Marketo email templates, not just email templates in general. That is a great call out, Jessica.
Yeah, very much agree. The like presence of things like global variables and some of the other core functionality that a good agency will know how to incorporate in your template, so you don't have 10 modules that are spacers of different colors, for example, is totally worth it. Speaking of email, I think the other thing that is plaguing this kind of community and industry beyond AI are the Google and Yahoo bulk sender updates. They went into effect in February, and there's a little bit of a slow roll, but is there anything that this group should be thinking about or preparing for in terms of the shifting future of emailing, especially to Google and Yahoo?
Yeah. To start with, Charlie's point earlier about good data practices, all Google and Yahoo are doing are enforcing good data and email hygiene. If you are, which Jessica, I know y'all like, if you're doing the right stuff, this isn't too much of a surprise. If you're not doing the right stuff, yes, you will have to make some changes. But none of this is like wildly out there. Google is like being our email overlords. No, this is just all standard best practice. So the key changes, having your SPF, DKIM, and DMARC enabled. When I'm done talking, I'll drop some links in the chat with more instructions about all of this. This is all just really technical things that your IT or your like web team can help you set up. This just helps Google and Yahoo know that like you are who you say you are and you're legitimate people who should be sending email. The next biggest change is the one-click unsubscribe. Marketo has already configured this for us, and the easiest way to test it is to set up a smart campaign wherein the smart list is sending you the email addresses yourself. Flow step, just send yourself an email that way. Because it is a real email send, you will then see the one-click unsubscribe pop up. I have found it very helpful to do this step and like screenshot that and circle that button if you need to send it to other people, especially other marketing team members or execs who are like, are you sure it's like automatically done? It's like, yes, it is. Here is our email. Here is it in red circled in a screenshot. Then you need to be good about processing your unsubscribes. I believe there's like a 2-day number, but in general, this is again, email best practice. When somebody asks for you not to email them, you should process that in a timely fashion. And then your spam complaint rates need to stay below a certain threshold. I don't think we have an exact number here. Well, I think Google has a number, Yahoo doesn't yet, but this also goes back to Charlie's point about data hygiene, right? Your block list, your unsubscribes, anybody you've marketing suspended internally, anybody who's unengaged, you shouldn't be emailing them in the first place. And as long as you stick to that, it is very unlikely that you will run against these spam complaints. The other thing you probably, you shouldn't be doing is buying lists and importing them and emailing cold leads randomly. But none of this is like new. I think that thing I really want to emphasize, like none of this is like particularly new, groundbreaking things. Google is just like, please do your jobs and don't mess up our databases. And we're just going to enforce it now on you. So.
Quick plug, if you work in B2B tech and you have a product and your product sends emails, check with your product team about the sender domain that they're sending emails on behalf of. And if you can, separate your marketing sender domain and your product sender domain, things like that, just so that you're in control of your own spam and your own email best practices. Also push your product team, if they aren't, to follow the same best practices, but if have a product that sends emails, separate those out if you can. Cool. So pivoting away from some of the tactical things around email, like templates and sender updates, to talk a little bit more about email kind of from a strategic standpoint. So we had a couple of questions around nurture programs, some insight or some asks for information on nurture best practices and setting up nurture programs. Chiara, I'm going to tap you, since I don't think we've heard from you yet, to kick this one off.
Yeah, absolutely. So after I'm done talking, I'll drop a couple of links in the chat. Our first question that we got was around some reading material or webinars for lead nurturing. All of the webinars I'll add are have passed and they're the recordings, but the first one I would recommend, the Champion program did a deep dive about email nurture last year, and that was incredible. It was Andy Carone, Lauren McCormick, and Melissa Day, all super, super, super smart women. So highly recommend that one. My other one that I like to recommend, I have a couple of different recordings of webinars by Amanda Thomas. I feel like she is the nurture guru. Alysha works with her. She was my mentor when I first started in the Champ program. She's so good at this stuff. So
we call her like the nurture queen. So if you can learn about nurture from anybody, it is from Amanda Thomas.
I've learned everything I know about nurture from her. So I am going to paste those links into the chat right now. In terms of nurture setup best practices, we got another question about that. The first one I always really like to recommend is to opt for smart campaigns rather than transition rules to pull people in and out of your streams, because that can actually be audited and you can see why people are moving in the way that they are. It's a lot more difficult with the Marketo transition rules. You also have just a lot more flexibility that way. You can do multiple things as you process. So I think that's really helpful. One thing I also always like to recommend is having a defined goal for each stream before you start and making sure that all of your emails are driving that goal. Like I'll see a lot of times where, oh, this is an awareness stream. We just want to make them more aware of our product. And then all of the CTAs are demo requests. Like that's not, and you're going to push up on your content team potentially, or your programs team, or whoever is running this. So that's something that I always suggest you come into those conversations with of, okay, what is the goal and how does this CTA work towards the goal? Another just kind of tactical setup thing here, I like to have a stream that houses any unsubscribed and non-marketable people, because if you remove them from the nurture program, you lose all reporting directly within Marketo. So if you're not bringing those records into, if you're not bringing them into like a Tableau or something, that's gone, right? But if you keep them in their stream, like what if you accidentally have an operational email, or someone accidentally unsubscribes them, and before they have a chance to re-unsubscribe them, they get sent a nurture email, right? So I like to have one stream that's just empty and there's no way to get out of it unless whatever your business rules are, and that's for unsubscribed, non-marketable, anything like that. One thing I also see a lot is having a plan for measuring nurture before you build. A lot of times people will just come, okay, I want this nurture.
Oh my gosh, that's so
Oh, was there a question? Okay. I'll see someone come, okay, we want to build this nurture and here's how we want to set it up. And if you don't plan for tracking and how you want that tracking to look, it can be really difficult to, like, I've had to redo a whole nurture because we didn't have tracking fully planned out, and we wanted to have, like, everything's tracked in Tableau. We wanted to have program membership associated for each email. If you're setting it up with just emails and not nested programs, there's not really a way to have that tracking by program, right? So that's, I think, a really important one. And then another question that we got, this will be my last point on this, is about how to turn on and off nurture the easiest way. My best tip is just going into setup and doing program status on or off. If you do anything in the streams or the emails, you're making a ton of clicks to turn that thing back on, versus program status. It's just an easy toggle, and as soon as you toggle it back on, it turns back on with all of the settings that you had when you turned it off. So yeah, that's what I had for some nurture best practices.
If I can jump in, Jess, I also, the one thing I love having once you get past like 1 or 2 nurtures is a nurture tracker, right? That's listing out nurtures, how many emails, what streams. And then what I actually love is also listing out a link to every email asset and what the main CTA is and where that's going, because that's also going to help your marketing and content team be able to keep that content refreshed a lot more easily. And even for you as your company rolls out new assets or you realize they deprecate certain things, it's so much easier to stay on top of all that. And to Chiara's, as you're like turning on and off nurtures, using that as a central location to keep a change log of like, yes, we turned it off for the holidays, turned back on this date, right? It's not just like living in your head somewhere or living in a random Asana ticket. There is one place for you to see all of your nurtures. The other thing the tracker can be super helpful for is tracking A/B tests, right? So if you're doing any A/B testing within there, when do you need to go back and look at it? What was the criteria you were testing? All of that stuff can just live in this one central place. And I have clients that have like 10 nurtures, and one of their campaign ops people just lives out of this tracker because that's the only way to keep all of the massive amounts of information about their nurture straight. So trackers, they're amazing.
Alysha, I want to hit you up and get an example. I'm curious, especially about some of the A/B test stuff. That's definitely something with my team that we've explored in the past. Is like one of the coolest things about nurture is that you can easily add in like A/B test and then continue the winner. And it's a great format for that. And so I'm curious how you've done that stuff. Anyone else want to chime in on anything related to nurture? Okay, so then moving into some like platform ops things around kind of like operational setup. One of the more recent Marketo, I guess maybe not recent at this point, one of the Marketo releases in the last few years that I was the most excited for was this concept of the executable campaign. So for those of you on the call, executable campaigns work like request campaigns, but the cool thing about executable campaigns is they process synchronously instead of asynchronously. So if you send to an executable campaign, that whole campaign processes before they move on to the next step in your smart campaign. So there's some awesome operational use cases there. There's also a deep dive from last week on executable campaigns that I think we're going to drop a link to in the chat that everyone can and should check out. Curious from this group, what are some of the ways they've implemented executable campaigns in their instances? Charlie,
Jess, I've got that link right here, so I could just hit that and put that in the chat. Yeah, it was great. It was great. I will talk about like how we use it at Kainos. So we use executables really for slimlining or streamlining a lot of our sort of programs, for having a lot of repeatable actions, and then also for just easy admin. So they tend to be things like processing leads in our operational sort of folders. So things that we just do again and again and again and again. And one of the coolest things, one of the things I love about executables is they run synchronously. So they run at the same time. You know, there's no wait step for a request campaign and then that has to finish to execute. It just runs at the same time. So a lot of our sort of programs run really quickly. And then they also inherit tokens as well, right? So if you are doing, like we run a lot of in-person events, we might have a whole load of BDRs going to that event. You know, we can have one executable campaign that then does all the lead allocation out across multiple different programs and also sort of smart campaigns. So that's how we use them. We sort of find shortcuts. We love them. And actually, we're in the process. I know some of my team are on this call today, in the process of rebuilding our Marketo instance. And actually, we're going to be really sort of optimizing and really sort of streamlining that new instance using mostly executables. So we're really excited about making that kind of progress.
New Marketo instance, everyone's dream, especially from scratch. Maybe that's not everyone's dream. Maybe that's just my dream.
I think my
Chiara's
dream is to audit when you audit a new one.
So I know one thing I've seen executables be used for is, again, kind of what Charlie mentioned, that operational processing. One area that if you are syncing your programs to Salesforce, especially on the top level, but even in a flow step, that is usually an area of concern for people, is how do you get them to finish all that operational stuff that is so important in terms of making sure they're in the right place in their life cycle, that you've run deduplication, that they've gone through lead scoring, all that good stuff. How does the team do that before the prospect gets added to a program or campaign? Chiara, can I tap you in?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say executable campaign, I think, is probably the only way to do it. But I will say the big caveat is, remember, so the question that we got was around how you get new leads to finish operational processing before being added to programs. And I think the big caveat here is there are a few instances where Marketo will automatically add people to programs, and you need to keep that in mind. So the cases where that happens is if someone fills out a form with a landing page that's local to the program, that person will automatically go into the program at your lowest status. If you import members into the program directly from a CSV file, they will automatically be added to the very first status. If someone registers or attends a webinar synced with an event program, that's going to automatically happen. A person is created using the Marketo iPad check-in app. I think that's been deprecated, but I kept it on here in case it's not. I haven't used it in a while. Or a person is added to a Salesforce campaign, which is synced to a Marketo program. So I think in most cases you could get around that, right? Like having the landing page live somewhere more centralized, importing members into a list that's local to a program rather than directly into said program. The one that's a little tricky is the webinar one. I have not found a great way to get around like net new records, getting into like processing all their new lead stuff before going into that webinar program that is synced with a program, an event program essentially. So I don't know if anyone else has tips there, but those were kind of my thoughts. Otherwise, just have everything done in executable campaigns and call those campaigns in your flow steps before you change their program status, and you're golden. I see Chris Kelly has a hand up.
Yeah, thanks. One of the ones that I have had that have been a game changer for me with executable campaigns is when you're trying to do webhooks and you need that callback before you continue on, to ensure that the data has been updated inside of Marketo before you're just passed along into the next flow. So you kind of run into some issues with the API and 30-second timeout and stuff, but in general, that has been the biggest interaction for me, at least, is the webhook calls.
Great call out. Thanks, Chris. The webhook use case for executables is so clutch to be able to get the response back and then continue on in your processing. Okay, gonna close us off here, I think, probably with a couple of questions around revenue cycle model, lead scoring, those sorts of things. So going back to our very first comment about consolidation, in the tech industry, it's becoming increasingly common for businesses to sell multiple products or more than one product, and need to track the engagement of their prospects and customers for each of those different products. Curious what the folks on this call have used in terms of life cycle model, revenue cycle model, all those sorts of good things when they do have multiple products and a prospect or customer might be interested in more than one. Chiara, I think you signed up to take this one.
I did. I can kick this off. So in terms of lead scoring, I think that is a pretty straightforward process. The way that I've always done this is just have some sort of little code in your program name that you are sure wouldn't be in there for any other reason than to note which product said program is referring to, right? So sometimes, like in certain cases, for me, it's been better to put like a few letters and a few numbers together because the name of the product is also common in like event names and or asset names and things like that. And then from there, in your scoring programs, you would just have like two different sets of score fields. And when you trigger off of them, you would trigger off of, they've done that change that you want them to get a score for, and it's within a program that has that program name. You can also do it for web activity by including that code in, for example, UTMs or the URL itself. That's one you got to work with your web team on sometimes, but yeah, I think that's probably the easiest way. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Carla asked, will they write to the same model or will you have several models per product? I tend to do like, my company, we sell Appfolio Property Manager and Appfolio Investment Manager. I would have a different score, at least behavioral score for each. If it's the same demographic of buyer, you could have one singular demographic score, but like for us, those can be very different buyers, so demographic score would be different as well. That kind of depends on your business and what that looks like. And then in terms of revenue cycle model, it depends on your subscription tier, how many of those you can have. So that's something to check with your CSM on, but assuming that you can have multiple, I've definitely done multiple. And the thing I always remember is just to have like, at the very beginning, they go from anonymous to known, and then I have like a path that's off the success path if they are not like interested in that specific product, so that you don't always have like a bunch of people in this like new known thing for a product that they might have never interacted with. But otherwise, yeah, you can have multiple revenue cycle modelers, and those can be really helpful in kind of understanding the life cycle of your two different products. I've also, if the question was around creating more than one revenue cycle model, you can have more than one, even like one for prospects, one for customers, if that makes sense for your business. Like it's just a matter of how many you are allowed in your instance. I forget what the default is, but it can be associated with cost. If they have multiple revenue cycle models, do I lose the person's score data? No, I don't know. Score data shouldn't be related to revenue cycle model in any way, so you should be fine. I guess if there's a little more background on that question and yeah, but I think just straight off the top, it shouldn't affect anything with your score data.
Anyone else have any tips around multiple products or in tracking multiple products through a lifecycle model?
I can give a shout out to a fellow champion. Katja Kiesen did actually a deep dive on scoring back in January. It's worth. I'll drop the link to the recording. It's worth watching that, and she actually looks at matrixing or creating matrices around sort of scoring models. Really interesting. Her problem was not necessarily products, but different regions, different locations, and having scoring models sort of for tackling that. So I recommend watching that video, watching back that video, and then picking up that idea of being able to matrix both the demographic and also the activity-based scoring in that one. I'll drop that into the chat.
Awesome. Well, we are 1 minute away from time here, so I don't know if we're going to tackle a whole nother question. I saw some great activity in the chat. Is there anyone who dropped something in chat that they don't feel like they got their question answered? Feel free to come off mute. Otherwise,
just really quick, Robin is asking about a going rate for a master template. I don't have a going rate, but I do have folks that we use. Is that an okay recommendation for this kind of thing? If not, that's fine. It's a couple $1,000 is the price. I don't remember the exact number.
yeah, that's about what I remember paying, was also a couple thousand.
Yeah, it was a couple $1,000.
RE recommendation, let's follow up, and if we can include it, we'll post the link when we host the recording. How's that sound? Cool. Thanks so much, everyone. It was great to have you all here. There were some awesome questions in chat. I hope we got your questions answered. Thanks a ton to Chiara, Charlie, Maria, Alysha for joining us today. You guys all shared awesome insights. I'm not going to Summit and I have some FOMO, but I hope that all of you who are going to Summit have an amazing, amazing time and get the chance to connect with some of the champs and learn a ton. Have a great Thursday, everyone.
Thank you all.